Okay, it's Friday. We are jamming out to more money, more problems here. Nothing like Notorious B.I.G. to kick off the weekend. If you're just jumping in, take a moment to settle in and arrive here. Before we just dive right in and I introduce Helena to everybody, I want to give a little bit backstory of like what these coffee breaks are all about. And some of you might be tuning in for the first time and don't really know me. So coffee breaks are a chance on Fridays to come together to listen to powerful women in all different industries talk about their work, their passions, what lights them up. And I love it because I get to talk to people from all different walks of life. But I think the common thread with all of the guests that I have here are we're trying to bring more, we're passionate about wanting to bring more awareness, talk about some of these tough conversations, create a safe space where you can, listen and know that you're not alone. And I love it. I'm a confidence coach. And so for women specifically, and people even recently asked, like, what does that mean, Lauren? That sounds like a title you gave yourself. Like, what does that actually mean? And really, it's about empowering women to have confidence, to have clarity, to shed the imposter syndrome, to let go of the self-doubt, to let go of the people-pleasing, like all those things that weigh us down, all those things that keep us small are getting in our way from being our brightest, best version of ourselves. And so why we are here right now is to be a reminder, to be a touchstone for you that you are amazing and you do deserve the best life. And you're not alone when you are in your head thinking, I've somehow fooled everybody. Everyone thinks my life is magically together. Everyone else thinks that, I am this like held on this pedestal and I'm a effing mess inside. That's the imposter syndrome. And what I'm continuously reminded of is women, it's lonely. The higher you scale up, the more you go up. It's like, it feels like a bigger crash sometimes to the bottom. And it feels like no one else gets me, but I've got this image. And when is my card going to be called and they're going to realize I've fooled everyone? And it's just simply not true. Like, it's not true. So if you are someone who struggles with this, who has these conversations in your head and doesn't really know who to talk about, if you're someone who's read every self-help book out there and still feels like you haven't figured it out for yourself, but you don't have time to research and look for a bunch of more resources, definitely tune in with me on Fridays. Always different topics, always amazing. Well, so far it's been all women, but we may change that up a bit. I'm always open to experimenting. And I'm going to put in a link here for anybody that wants. I have a free guide that is all about helping you connect, like balance your divine masculine with your divine feminine. So when you learn to balance and marry those two together, and it's not always like a perfect yin yang, it's constantly shifting and moving. But when you do these daily practices, they're so simple, they don't cost you anything to do. You really start to feel that footing and that clarity. So I'll pop that in there for you right now. Anyone that wants it, feel free to take it. Okay, so now I'm just so pleased. I'm so excited to introduce our special guest today, Helena Rosenthal, who is a financial strategist. She empowers everybody, but really helps focus on women with this, this mindset to not look at money with scarcity, but really to reframe it with abundance. And just a little backstory on how we met. So she also went to Dartmouth. I was doing a workshop on how to banish burnout. And I think she must have registered. Helena, you registered, and then you took initiative and you sent me an email in advance saying like who you are. And these are how connections happen. People, like breadcrumbs just get put in your path, and you can either tune in or you can tune out. You can pick it up, you can taste it, or you can just step over it. And I'm like, I'm not stepping over this. I'm picking up this breadcrumb. Like, what's this all about? And so we got on a call, and I was immediately blown away by who she is and her story. And so I actually will let you, Helena, share a little bit about your backstory and what brought you here to this moment.
Lauren, it's so nice to spend a little bit of Friday with you. I am happy to share my story, my profession, my passion. I think it's very meaningful that we're both women of Dartmouth, particularly as we think about financial independence for women. My mom, by dint of her gender, could not apply to our alma mater. So this is within our lifetime. These are stories that we hear firsthand.
I just want to put a fine point on that really quick. So Women of Dartmouth is celebrating 50 years of coeducation. So just take a moment and think about that for a moment, people. 50 years ago in our lifetime, women could not go to some of these schools. And I actually was reading something that said that I think President Kennedy was like, we now realize women could really be contributing to leadership. And so we're going to encourage institutions to start admitting women in. Like, oh, awesome. Anyway.
Yeah, right. So this is all within our lifetime, our story. Within that same decade, 1970s, women could not open credit cards or bank accounts without their husband's permission.
Pause there again. Think about that. That's insane. In our lifetime, could not open a credit card without husband's permission. Okay.
So fast forward 50 years, 2020, it's a pandemic. I became a mommy. I gave birth in August of 2020. I didn't have a husband, still don't. Sole breadwinner, solo parent, and I gave birth in Beverly Hills. 2020. There is no information, no patient education around financial literacy, around the fact that this teeny tiny human, my little Jack bear, is going to be financially dependent on me for the next 18 years at best.
Yeah.
There's no education around retirement analysis, around 529s, around capital markets, and thinking through my English Lit degree from Dartmouth. I also have a master's of public health from Dartmouth. I have an MBA from UCLA. And as I was thinking through, what do I want to be when I grow up, and how do I want to impact communities that I'm passionate about? I love storytelling. I mean, I studied lit at Dartmouth. I love numbers. I've spent so many years of my life living in Excel. And when I put those two passions together, financial strategy and financial planning and financial advising for clients, for families, for companies that I'm passionate about, really activates me. And it sparks, both sides of my brain, because when our team is able to act as a thought partner for historically underrepresented people who could utilize some degree of financial advice, that really brings me to life. And the impact just compounds and compounds, because we're able to support people in gaining clarity around financial goals, but also executing them, and not just talking about goal setting in a vacuum, but very similar to your types of programs. These are so interdisciplinary, and we strive for that interoperability. So your retirement goal speaks to your house goal, speaks to the college goal, speaks to the how do I pay myself first? Where's
Yeah.
the self-care bucket of money? Is that at the end of the month? Is that at the end of the year? Is that if I hit a certain age or a certain income? Or how do I shift this paradigm around scarcity versus abundance? How do I know if I'm enough, if I have enough? So those
Right.
are the conversations that that I are just so powerful for me.
Yeah, and that made me think of I just want to share this story as it relates to, well, first of all, what you said, Helena, like the fact that now in modern day, 2022, we can have a child. We don't have to ask anyone for permission. We can get a sperm donor. We can make that, independent choice for ourselves. But we don't necessarily, well, A, no one ever teaches us. There's no course on parenting. And there's also really no course on this whole financial, how do I do it? Like, where do I go? Like, what is enough? And I hear a lot of women just default, like lean in and assume it's the male role, or the woman who is the breadwinner today, and if she's in a partnership with someone, it's that also awkward feeling of, am I emasculating him? Like, this is sometimes, we're playing opposite the traditional gender roles. How do I broach this subject? It's uncomfortable.
And it's just assuming he's already got it covered, right? Like I
Yeah,
maybe there's just not that space to dialogue.
right.
So how
Exactly.
do we create those spaces?
Intentional dialogue. And so as a kid, for me, I love talk. I mean, actually, I get uncomfortable with it, but I love it because I love discomfort. It's one of my values of growth. So that's where I find like beauty in talking about this topic. But as a kid, how I first got enrolled in the whole financial, like what it means, why I cared was my dad. I was probably like, I was like 7 years old. I'm in second grade. It was Sunday morning. And my dad's like, hey, Lauren, like, come sit with me for a second. So we sit down and he's like, did you know that you are an owner? You're an owner of Kodak and Johnson and Johnson. And do you want to see how your business is doing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's kind of giddy and silly. And so he showed me, he explained to me stocks and being a shareholder and what that means. And I just remember feeling so proud and excited and like wanting to tell my friends, like, I partly own Kodak and Johnson and Johnson. And it was really cute because my dad intentionally picked, companies that as a kid, it would mean something. And anyone that's really young that doesn't remember Kodak, it was the film, like old school cameras, taking pictures, printing the film, getting your prints at CVS. So
Waiting a week. There
wait.
was the waiting period.
Oh, yes. Gosh, we've come so far from that.
So how did that compare to your mom's influence on your relationship to money?
Right. So I immediately had that like excitement. But then my mom was always like, that was my connection point with my dad. My mom didn't even really have a seat at the table. She didn't talk about it. And then when my parents got divorced, which they were married for like 25 plus years, and my dad had taken care of all the finances, all the bills, like it was an out of sight, out of mind thing for my mom, unless she'd overspent on the credit card. And then there would be a little like tap on the shoulder. But otherwise, it was a blind spot. And so when her divorce happened, it was scary for her. She was like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how to do a budget. I'm not a money person. I'm not a math person. This isn't my thing. And then I got divorced about 7 years later or so. And I have to say, I was so grateful for having those seeds planted, and in my marriage being that person that managed the numbers and paid the bills and all of that. But I still noticed, who was I calling for when I was going with my attorney to figure this out? There was not a call to my mom really for the finances. It was all my dad. Like, hey, can you look at this? Can you sign off on this, in the sense of like verbal, just say this, gut check it for me. And so Helena was telling me, in her world, like this is a very common, I don't know what you want to call it, but like the way things just have unfolded for us
Mhm.
culturally. And so, Helena, I would love to hear, how some of this shift happens with the way you look at in your firm, like how you actually look at money and helping women to change the narrative from "that's not my problem, he'll cover it," or "daddy's got it," or "someone else will," to like really empowered and excited about, not just like, ugh, that like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with this."
Yeah, we think about that frequently. I think it's both qualitative and quantitative. So qualitatively, like you and I can talk about for days on end, women desire a sense of love, safety, a sacred space where
Mhm.
there's no judgment. It's just we unleash and we just lay it all out and kindle the fire. And then how do we get from that place to a strategy? And then how do we execute that strategy? And having somebody step by step by step by step is really, really critical when we're thinking about these types of decisions that impact our future that may or may not be as certain as our present is. Later in life, guarantees are golden, right? Like we joke a lot about like annuities and pensions and how they're kind of old school, but later in life when your retirement spigot turns off and you're no longer generating income, the idea of something that is guaranteed and stable and coming into you like a routine, like any kind of routine that we do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, that feels good.
Oh,
So that's just like the qualitative, like what do people desire and how does that make us feel, and then how do we shift our mindset around that?
and can we talk about the water cooler concept with men and the knowledge is
Yes,
power?
that is the quantitative part of like women don't talk about numbers to each other the way that historically men have, right? At the golf course, at the country club, water cooler. Oh, my portfolio shot up 30%, or the crypto is also shot. Like everything's up. Everything's always up, up, up. So yes, with women, I think that the language around that is a little bit typically not as doesn't have as much hubris in it.
Yeah.
Perhaps is a bit more conservative, more cautious, more like I don't want to brag, but I think it's really.
Exactly. Even women who have money that are the breadwinners, like,
Mhm.
I don't want to talk about it. I want to make someone feel bad and feel guilty even. Like, I better be really altruistic and, give it all away because I don't really deserve this. And we also just have this idea of if I'm looking to make money, I must have some sort of really ego drive and selfishness. And I simply think that also is a reframe that we need to shift out of. Um, in the sense of, I remember when I was like starting my business and thinking, well, there was a few things. One thing that also comes to mind is I was like, I need to somehow find the capital for this. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to make some real serious decisions of pulling from my future some of these stocks
Mhm.
I've had to plant right now. And I think a lot of people also have that scarcity, like, I've got to hold on to it. I got to hold on to it, rather than thinking, it can work for me and an investment can blossom. And so
An
for
investment in myself.
an investment in myself. So I
Right.
took,
Like who that's the investment. It's
and that
you.
is huge. Because if you're investing in yourself and you're believing in yourself, you believe the mindset is there's more to come. I can make more, I can do more with it. And then guess what? I can give more back to the people, to the things that matter to my heart. But if we don't put our money where our heart is and start making some of those investments in ourselves, whether it's a business idea that we have, whether it's self-care, that whatever that thing is, taking your family on vacation and not deferring and delaying and denying yourself of it for some day, but saying, hey, I'm going to do this now. It's like the mind shift for me was when I made this, with withdrawal, and I took out what I was planning to earmark for, later in life. I remember I called my brother and I'm like, am I just crazy for doing this? And he's like, no, that's probably one of the safest investments that you can. Like, don't think of it as you're just taking it and burying it in the ground. Your why is to turn that into something with your life purpose. And I all of a sudden was talking with Helena about this, like this visual of, yeah, I took that money, I planted it in the ground, not to bury it for when I'm dead, but to create a tree and have each branch of the tree blossom into different sources that can be allocated to what this life really matters to me. And so I think it's worth even talking about, Helena, like money allocation as it relates to like not thinking of it just as $1,000 is $1,000. Like, well, what does $1,000 really represent for you? Right?
Yeah, the type of aperture that we like to coach people around is the reality that dollars need a job description, right? So like every dollar lives somewhere and has a purpose. So that's thinking about asset allocation and then asset location. So yes, of course, we love, diversified asset portfolios across all 9 asset classes, and that's exciting for us internally. But when we think of that $1,000 can really only live one place. So does that live in a 401k? Does that live in an IRA? Does it live in self-care? And helping people kind of see that we can spin off a little bit of a big mountain of assets to provide utility, provide value, provide joy.
Yeah.
In the present, because time also follows that algorithm, right? Like we can only spend our minutes and our hours and our days doing really one thing at a time. So
Right.
how do we want to spend our money? How do we want to spend our time? And then how do we expect our money to work for us?
Right, exactly. And so I like to think of it as almost like a visual map for, everything has its bucket, it has its place, it has a purpose. Really give your money more purpose for what it is. And I was thinking about this morning about how money for me really ties back to my values. So when we start to go deeper and we know our values, it makes a game-changing difference. And I actually want to call out and acknowledge Helena and her team, because previously when I would meet with a financial advisor, it was very traditional. It was all the jargon and like 529s and SEPIRAs and blah. And you just would tune out. I was like, just do it for me. Just give me a good return if you can and call it a day. That's what I'm paying you for. Like, to manage my money, the fees. Well, what was interesting was when I talked to Helena about it, like when we got on a call, it was so the questions were so open-ended and really got me to think about what money really matters to me, like what I'm working for and how I want that to work for me and my values. And so values of mine are like connection, adventure, spontaneity. And so for me, like making money that then allows me to do adventure, it's not to me about the surface stuff, right? And I think a lot of women think, oh, if I'm trying to get money, I'm just trying to buy the next car and the next house and the next blah. But when you start to tie it to your deeper values, you realize like it takes on a different energy and vibration and
And
meaning
purpose.
and purpose. And so in my case, like connection is so important. So I will always put a lot of money behind things that are going to bring me connection with people, like deep, meaningful connection, whether that looks like self-care or that looks like going on vacation with my family to connect deeper, being with friends. But that's why I work, not for all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a really interesting thing that happened recently where I was reminded of how money can just feel like this whole notion, we all know it intellectually, money does not buy happiness, but it is so easy to think, yeah, sure, that's easy to say. And this is going to sound like a first world problem when I share this story. So just bear with me here. There's a reason why I'm sharing it. But I recently got back from my trip to St. Bart's, which was just over the top. If you want to see some beautiful places, like go to my Instagram and look at some of these pictures because it was insane. We were staying at this villa that was just private views, 360 views, going to amazing French cuisine restaurants, 5-star, like the shopping unheard of. And it was just sensory overload. Like those first days, I was like, oh my God. And then something really interesting happened. We were there for 2 weeks, and I would say it happened around like day 7 or 8. It all became a backdrop of nothing. Like I didn't see it anymore. It was just there. And I can only imagine living there, and it just, because like those of us who know, well, Helena's like in LA, when the sun's always out, it's like you don't have the appreciation. And what I realized, what was really amazing, which was like a breakthrough, is like you can have all this stuff, but if you're not inside at home and you're not with the people that make it special, none of that matters. And so it's back to like the simplicity of, what are you really, your values for you? What are you doing this for? Because all that stuff is going to come, it's going to go, it's going to be fleeting. And Helena, share your story about your car. Like you had a similar example.
Oh, sure. I bought a really, really nice car for myself in the first 2 weeks. I was driving it, felt on top of the world. It was right before the pandemic. So like taking it to get a car wash was like in lieu of me getting a manicure. And it felt so good to drive and to take care of this beautiful car. And yeah, like after 2 weeks, it was like, all right, now it's
metal.
It's a car. It's a vehicle. And yeah, now with a baby, it has like stuffed giraffes and cereal. And it's just a vehicle for
transportation. So that's the point, is like when we start to, that stuff is always going to feel like a quick hit. It's like a shot of tequila that makes you like dance on the tables for a little bit. And then the reality sets in. And when we realize how our money can really feed our soul and work for us and have a strategy and feel in control and feel secure, if you can feel secure with your financial strategy, I guarantee you will feel so much more at peace. And if you know that your financial strategy is secure and working for you, for the things that matter to you, you're going to be out there wanting to work more, make more, so that you can have more of that freedom and that continued security.
And Lauren, I think as it specifically relates to women, it's so interesting to think through historic roles of chivalry and the man opening the door, the man paying, the man being kind of the executive decision maker around finance for the family, and how just because a woman might out earn her husband or have her own business or be the person who makes decisions about stock trades, it doesn't mean that you necessarily don't enjoy having somebody else, that you don't enjoy being on the receiving end of somebody else's generosity or somebody else's
right.
chivalry.
It has to be this like all or nothing. And like, I think that's the tricky thing that we've gotten into in the States. Like, I mean, it's interesting, right? We were talking about this too. There's this level of like still wanting to be as a, in your divine feminine, receiving and allowing. And I actually had this client who she is more of the breadwinner, and it's her boyfriend. He doesn't make nearly as much, but he wants to, in his own way, what he can do, give and take her out for dinners and do things. And she's got this like funny little like, oh, but I know he can't really afford it. I'm like, you're taking away his joy. Like, he wants to do this and it means something. It matters to him. Like, give him that space and that opportunity. And that's been really interesting to me because, the divine masculine does want to provide. And when I say divine masculine, I'm not talking about men. I'm just talking about that energy and that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And broadly speaking, like the men, when they're in their divine masculine, it takes, they want to pour in and give and create that security. And as women, can we just step back and take a moment and say, thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to receive for a moment and it's okay.
And also, how do we take control of that narrative and nourish that internally with female friendships? How can I make my best friend, my roommate from Dartmouth, feel like $1,000,000 by, like, I don't know, sending a little treat her way after work one day? It's so easy to, like, send her some ice cream.
Yes, exactly.
Like, just have a little, like, just a little something waiting for her, in a way that, yes, I'm utilizing my money, my capital to provide joy to somebody I love. It's
Right.
simple.
It's a gift. That's a joy for you. It's
I
funny.
get I probably get more joy out of it than she does.
Right. I know. It's so
Powerful. It's
interesting.
powerful.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just bringing light to some of this. I think as we talk about this more, we talk about the awkwardness of, first dates when we're going, like, who's going to pay? This recently happened. A friend was sharing, she went on a date. Bill comes. She says, "Hey, hey, can I chip in and pay half?" And he goes, "I think 30% is fair. I'll pay 70." So, but what was really more interesting was that this friend shared with me that she didn't really want to pay even half, but it was a should. It was like, I felt
Mhm.
compelled, and I'm like, cut the nonsense. Stop judging ourselves, right? Stop thinking there's a right way and there's a wrong way, and rather than just accepting, you know what? I'm the kind of woman that on a first date, I want the person to pay for me. Own it. It's okay.
100%. I
And
mean, we
don't throw in I should add the 50, I'll pay for half, unless your heart's really in it and you're excited to pay for half.
how do you think she would feel if you were a fly on the wall at the restaurant and you had said to her, "Why don't you offer to pay for his meal and he pays for yours?" Or why don't you offer to pay for 30% of his meal? And
Right.
then it's like, is she paying for hers? Is she paying for his? Like, what?
Such a it
It's like,
creates.
it's
Yes.
it's so uncomfortable. Um, which, to your point about it.
We have to talk about it. And so it's also uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if you noticed, like, and when friends, you leave college and now everyone's starting to make their money. And then there's this awkward, like, some people are making more, some are making less, but you love them at the heart. You're like, that doesn't matter. I still want to hang out with you. But then everyone's sort of dancing around, like, the friend, Susie can't pay, but she
Mhm.
feels in like a charity case. And it's just like, let's talk about this openly. Let's talk about bringing light to this. And I think in relationships, it's really, really important to carve intentional time out and be in alignment of what that looks like. Like, I'm in a situation right now going, with my fiance, we're blending families, we're commingling finances, and it would be so easy to just, like, let time just pass and let it fall the way it falls. And we have to be intentional about saying we're gonna have the awkward, like, money talk. Let's just get real about
Mhm.
it, and it's so
Mhm.
liberating. It makes both of us on the same page, and I think a lot of couples don't even really talk about that and what that means, and they just, maybe the person who's making more just feels they've gotta step in, and that's now their new place and role, and,
I have 2 points of commentary about that.
yeah.
What we see frequently is, um, especially high income earners are saddled with student debt. So as that relates to couples and planning together, who pays for what? If partner A is paying for his or her student debt, then does partner B spend the same amount of their individual money on group expenses, or do they help with this? So like even as we're commingling, there are certain things that are really just like one person's debt or one person's expenses. So being very transparent around who's legally liable for what, who wants to pay for what, who derives joy from paying for
Yeah, right.
um, and then the second point is just around benefits and corporate culture. We know that intra-pandemic and certainly post-pandemic, once we finally close this chapter, um, corporate America is trying with all their might to hold on to employees and to hold on
Oh, yeah.
to really excellent workers, because so many people are shifting into the entrepreneurial space that 401ks are getting a little bit sweeter, group benefits are getting a little bit sweeter. And as individuals or partners are thinking about shifting into the small business space or forming a
Side
company,
hustle.
right? Like how do we provide the same kind of infrastructure and the same kind of foundation as corporate, knowing that they're sweetening the pot to make people stay, right? That's just an incentive. So how do we replicate that within our personal finances if that's not the right choice for us anymore?
Right. And that's where something like someone like you really helps bring clarity there. Like having those conversations, I'm always a believer, you don't know what you don't know. And so there's all these blind spots. So I'm always wanting to like get on a call with somebody who may have some insights. They're going to ask me questions that reveal a I don't know spot that I didn't even realize I didn't know the answer to. And just that awareness can really bring it to the front of mind. And once you have awareness, anything is figure outable. You can do anything. You can make a plan. But if you don't know what's even there, it's really hard to make the decision. Do I leave my job? Do I stay? Oh no, if I leave the job, I don't know about tax codes and, yeah, putting money aside, SEPIRAs and money for maybe my children or my parents. Like, we don't need to know everything. We don't need to go get our MBAs. That's why we have people like Helena and others who can help have those educated conversations with us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
Are there
I'm,
any questions from the audience? I'd be happy to answer
yeah,
anything that's bubbling up.
anything that resonates also just let us know, but feel free to pop in here, put into the chat. We're streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So say hello. Feel free to at least give a wave. Let us know that you're here with us. Just checking here for anything else that. Okay. Oh, there's one more thing, as maybe people put in comments, is this whole concept of like how to avoid self-sabotaging your wealth. Because I also think there's this idea of, oh gosh, once I make money, what do I do with it? And do I just want to give it all away? And
Or
um
I don't deserve to.
or don't even start, because I'm like, I'm curious if anyone that's listening has this feeling of this, because this is something that came up for me when I wanted to start my own business, and I am in the coaching industry. I really wanted to like help everybody. And I still want, my heart still wants to. And it was a tough sort of realization of someone had a hard truth with me and is like, what are you building, Lauren? Are you building a nonprofit or are you building a business? And if you really want to serve more people, you've got to at some point say to yourself, well, I need to charge a certain amount so that I can get the wheels in motion, so that I can make more to then build the pieces and the blocks and the foundation to then scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a big new way of looking at the pie of like, That's interesting.
What was novel to you about that insight?
Well, thanks for asking that. I mean, one thing was she also said to me, unless you're like a trust fund that's going to just bootstrap this forever, you've got tons of funding. How are you going to continue this? And I was like, that's a really good point. And what she said that really helped me was you may want to, do coaching for everybody and you talk to women and your heart connects with them when they're going through a hardship, they're going through, divorce or grief or health issues and they don't have the money, but it's just not a right now. And that gave me permission for the right now to still have that vision and hold that vision, but to scale things back and really get real with myself. Like get clear on who it is right now that I can best serve. I'm one person. Like it's a little bit of getting your own ego, superwoman complex out of the way, right? And saying, okay, how can I simplify this? What tools, what systems, what other experts can I put into place to help support me and start charging and creating programs that maybe are not at this moment helping everybody, but that can really serve a certain woman. And then it starts and then it grows and it grows. And there was a lot of voice in my head of like, oh, that's greedy, or like, who are you to be wanting to make all that? Do you really think you're worth it? All of that. Like, and it was, and I, even to this day, when I get on the phone with women, we're having the money talk of what it's like, guys, let's not make this so awkward and weird.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just to talk about what this actually means to you. What is this worth to you by stepping in and, investing in yourself? We always think it's a cost. Like I'm either going to pay this or I'm not going to have it. And it's a reframe. It's like, it's costing you something by not investing in yourself. It's costing you your sleep. It's costing your inner home. If you're not in full alignment and you're not living your purpose, that's a cost. I'm sorry. That's a big cost. And when we start even putting, this is a fun one. Someone said, start putting a dollar amount on your time. So when you choose to go say yes to someone, because women are broadly overcommitters, and we don't like to say no, you've just, consider yourself like that was a billable hour to yourself that you just lost. And I started.
Time is money.
And that's the truth. And so this whole, we're doing a lot. I mean, collectively, I'm going to bring it back to the like big picture. It's like there's a lot of healing and shifts that are happening for men and women collectively. So it's just remembering that we are healing some wounds. We are bringing light and awareness to years of women not standing in their power in this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncomfortable. So part of the triggering is it is uncomfortable because it's new.
Right.
And we don't necessarily have all the role models to look to as women. And the only way that we're going to get through this is to go through this and to talk about it and not avoid it.
Of course. And the only way that your children will turn to you for financial advice is for you to take action on your own path.
And life is about action and choices, and we get to choose and we get to take action, and we don't need to depend. And it also is this dance. People sometimes get literal when I say these things, like, okay, if I'm not depending on anyone, then I can't have a man, and I can't have a partner that makes more than me. Stop the nonsense. No, it's not. It doesn't mean that. It means we need to bring light. We need to talk about it. It means we need to know our worth, that we can create what we need to create. We can always have enough for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Another fun one, Helena, remember us, I was telling her, I think this is crazy. And I think this is a man thing that I've heard now a few guys say this, that they'll talk with one another and they'll say, hey, dude, what's your number? And I'm like, my ex was telling me that. I'm like, your number? First thought phone number. And then I'm like, number of sexual partners. Like, that's where my brain went second. I'm like,
Also a good guess.
like, what? And he's like, no, like your number, that if you had enough, you'd be good and you would stop working and you would, it would be like, I achieved it. I've hit, my worth is there now. Now I can relax. I thought, oh my gosh.
We didn't talk about this.
We don't talk about it. Then I thought, well, like,
but the men would. You're like, there
and that's just a normal thing. It's like, that's bro talk.
We've normalized it.
Yeah. So, just by us being here right now and having this is why we want to do it. And we want to hear from you. I see people, Chantel, Sandra, I agree. I 100% agree. Yeah. So have those conversations. I also think if you're in a relationship where it's awkward, or any sort of even business relationship, doesn't need to be romantic, have a time on the calendar at least 3 times a year that it's earmarked, it's scheduled. Put it in your digital calendar and put, as the months are going, if it's not urgent, just plop it into the agenda for yourself. And then we both have a placeholder to have the awkward talk without it being, because it's never like the right time. When things are going well, you start to say, oh, it doesn't matter. That was just me, overthinking things. And when things aren't going well, you're emotionally charged. And when having any sort of important conversation, when emotions are high, it's really much harder to have a fruitful conversation.
Oh, fruitful, but also like actionable, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
We don't need to have the same conversation next quarter. We want to have a different conversation.
Exactly.
This process should be rooted in growth. It should be iterative.
Mm-hmm.
The markets are iterative. The volatility this week, right? So,
oh my gosh.
But no wonder it's emotional.
Right. That's a great point. Exactly. And it's going to ebb and it's going to flow. And what can you do to have a level of constant and consistency? Any other strategies, Helena, that you would want to share, especially with the woman who is either an entrepreneur or considering, I think there's a lot of women right now that are realizing maybe they're attorneys, maybe they're in finance, maybe they're a teacher, and they're like, I enjoy what I do, or even a doctor, but there's a lot of skills. I could do some consulting work on the side that can be my own little baby that I want to create. So if for those women you've had that are playing that narrative in their mind, but are really feeling stuck and scared, what helps those conversations maybe get some clarity?
I think acknowledging that those feelings are valid, that personal finance and investment is not taught in college. It was not taught at Dartmouth. It was not mandatory in business school. Like we should be talking about these things in high school. So yes, of course, it's scary, it's unknown, it's ambiguous. Objectively, we can look at the numbers and really understand how much income needs to be replaced. What are the monthly household expenses? Yearly, what are we contributing to? And then to think through the tax ramifications of different streams of money coming in, living in different types of buckets, just to make sure that foundationally we can check all those boxes. And then the woman can be an entrepreneur and can launch and can feel comfortable knowing that all of the financial decisions have been outsourced.
She's been intentional about it. They've been outsourced. She's got the right people. I think also a lot of women think, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to take finance 101 and become now an expert. Because that's, as women, we think we need more degrees, we need more education, we need to know it all before we can lead a team. How many women don't think they could be a CEO of a company because they haven't done every role they're going to manage? And it's like, how many men just raise their hands and say, I'm going to figure it out and I'll hire people that are good at what they need to do and I'll do it well.
That's so interesting, because what we see a lot of is that as we make decisions around finances, timing drives execution. So there's a lot of kind of caution, hesitation for women. Like, I don't know if this is the perfect time for me to dip my toe in the market, or I don't know if I should, put X amount of money into the SEP. And it's like this ghost of perfectionism, like always kind of living in the background. And
that's so true.
Again, it's fluid, it's iterative.
Not one and done. You're not going to do a one-time investment.
It should not be. No. We want fluidity. We strive for evolution. We don't expect that, certain variables that are constant today will be constant next year or in 10 years or in 30 years. Especially with the pandemic, a lot of people have questions around long-term care insurance or around life insurance, around estate planning and wills and trusts, and thinking through the lens of legacy, which I think the pandemic has expedited that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Thinking through that. And what is your legacy and what do you want to create? And nothing's constant. Like I love this quote, the one constant in life is change, but you have control of consistency. You have control of deciding what you're going to consistently do, how you're going to consistently look at this, how you're going to, consistently contribute to different funds, and that gets to adjust. Like a bad year means, that's why I always like to think of not as like a whole dollar amount, but more of a percentage. That always helps my brain say, okay, well, it's gonna go up and down. But as long as I've committed to, 10% goes to this bucket and 10% in this bucket, and then I get to make choices of what my lifestyle can afford realistically. And I think it's crazy. I don't think we do this. We have all this in our head. One second, I'm gonna grab this. Oh, just made me think when you were talking about mapping things out. This is gonna sound so, in some ways, like duh, but it was really eye-opening for me. With my own schedule, this wasn't with my money, but I finally really took a calendar, and I literally mapped all the things I have, all the obligations I've said yes to. This was February, and I was like, oh, that's why things feel very full and overcommitted. And, when I look at this objectively, it gives me clarity. It sees the gaps. Similarly with finance, I think a lot of it's a swirl in our minds, and we haven't just even taking the exercise of doing a brain dump. Where is my money so far? Where is it sitting? What do I need to do? And then you might realize you're better off than you think, because you've scared yourself into thinking you don't have enough.
Especially what we see so much of is old 401ks that are just collecting dust, and people don't even realize, no, that is your money. That is your money. You might not be the company anymore. You might not have rolled it over to a different vehicle, but that still is your money. And it's because we don't do exercises like that, where we map everything out and we see this macro level view of everything that we deserve.
Yeah. What are you doing it all for? It's back to what's your why? Why do you want to be, what is your number? What's your number that's enough for you, truly? And more importantly, why? Because if you're saying number, we were joking, 50 million, really? For what? Where are you spending that and what's it on? But when you really get real about it, it's it's the simple thing. It's so much less about what we think we need and more about what fills us up.
And we think a lot about financial freedom. So the word retirement is not really in vogue anymore. So it's when can you hit that financial independence and that financial freedom where you don't need to work to generate income to sustain your lifestyle. And instead, you spend your time doing what you want, which might be working.
Right.
Or not. Maybe doing a different job. Maybe could be anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that reverse engineering mathematically into that financial freedom chapter of life is very intriguing for people to think through.
So what I would say to everybody that's watching and with us, either now or on the replay, is if you are feeling stuck, if you have that scarcity mindset, step one, get and talk to somebody, like a professional, just to start those conversations, just to bring some light and awareness and a level of mapping it. Like put your, your control back into your own hands rather than just losing sleep and stressing about it. Take inspired action. Take inspired action. And it's just that first step. It's just that first phone call. It's just, and say to the person, if you're not a finance, like, this is overwhelming, this is scary. And you get to interview people. You get to pick someone that feels in alignment with you, that's with you. Again, you just like in any part, like a dating, a relationship that you're going to be in partnership with, you've got to feel safe. Safe to ask the dumb questions, safe to not just say, I'm turning it all over to you, safe that this person cares not just about, doing it for you and bringing you in, but actually wanting to understand your why. And that's what Helena, when you talk to me about like customizing an experience, a financial blueprint, that's for Lauren. Not just, oh, okay, what's your money? Okay, well, this is what we do. 10% goes into the money market, then we put 40% into options and 10% in the SEP. No, it's like, what makes sense for you right now, where you're at with your situation, with your kid situation, with if you have a partner, if you don't, with your business. And it's not a one size fits all at all, right? So,
And what brings you joy? What excites you about saving? What excites you about spending? 'Cause you will be exhibiting those behaviors regardless of about how we guide you, right? So we want to do it in a way that aligns culturally with your values and
yes.
your goals.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Helena. Thanks for coming in and bringing light to this. Helena's joining in my private mentorship mastermind 7x7. She's coming in as a guest February 9th to just really have that more intimate dialogue with the women. So I'm excited to have that, Helena. Ladies, if you're listening, and bring your questions. It's definitely an ask anything safe space to lay it all out there, and trust that if we don't know the answer, if I probably won't, if Helena does though, she doesn't know it, trust that she's going to say that and then help find it with you, supporting you. Yeah. And I want to close by just acknowledging the work that we're doing as women today to support one another, to know that we're not alone, that we are pack animals. We work better in tribes, supporting one, asking each other. And so the more we can do that and reach across the aisle and have those conversations safely, the more knowledge and normalizing this will be, right? And
Amazing, Lauren. It's always so wonderful to spend time with you.
oh, this is like the best part of my kicking off my week. This is why I do Fridays, because now I'm juiced and jazzed and ready to like go take it on, bring in more joy. But I love people like you, Helena, that are here to courageously speak and share and connect with others, like in a way that is from the heart and not just from the like uh base level of what you do, right? The day to day.
No,
So
we're here long term.
yeah. If someone wanted to reach you at all, Helena, can you pop in? Do you see the
Oh,
chat?
sure.
I'll
I
put it
do. Yeah. Here.
in your whatever's best for you.
Comments. Oh, how nice. People have been commenting. Lovely. Let's see. I'm going to figure this out.
I can also pop it in if that's helpful. Thank you all for being here. I don't actually know. I'm going to be taking a little hiatus. I'm going to be traveling for the next couple of weeks. So may not have these regular coffee talks, but we'll pick them back up again.
Did that come through?
I didn't see it.
I put it in private chat. Can I?
Let's see. Private chat. Yes, let me take it and put it up for everybody. Okay, here we go. So here is contact info. Helena, what lights you up? Like, what do you love to talk about with women?
Oh my gosh. I like to know their story, where they're going, where they want to go, how they like to be supported, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel heard, what's scary to them about the work that my team and I do, and what does a relationship with a financial advisor look like?
Yeah.
Like what can we do to be the best part of your week?
And partners. That's what that word is coming up as you were saying. Like, it's a partnership.
It's truly a thought partnership, right? Like we can't do this without clients, and without our expertise, it's harder for clients
Yes,
to achieve
exactly.
certain outcomes.
It's a
Not
mutual.
impossible, it's just harder. That's right. It should be mutual.
Yes. Okay, well, we are going to sign off with a little music to close us out. Thank you all again for
Thank you
joining.
so much.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you for sharing your light and your beautiful soul with us. We will see you soon.
Bye, Lauren.
Bye. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy weekend.